An anxious attachment style involves a fear of abandonment, a strong desire for closeness, and often manifests in seeking reassurance and validation in relationships. Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reicheter, and today I'm joined by Jennifer Nurick, a reviewed clinical psychotherapist, counselor, and energetic healer. Jennifer illuminates the signs of an anxious attachment style, guiding listeners in recognizing and understanding their own relational patterns. With her wealth of knowledge drawn from spiritual psychotherapy, internal family systems, EMDR therapy, somatic psychotherapy, and couples therapy, Jennifer navigates us through the process of releasing anxious fears and fostering secure connections. In this episode, she shares 7 practical tips for dating when you are anxiously attached, offering invaluable guidance for navigating relationships with confidence and authenticity. Tune in as we delve into the intricacies of anxious attachment styles and offer invaluable insights on overcoming the fear of abandonment in relationships. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited for our conversation. We're going to talk about anxious attachment styles. But before we begin, I just want to check in with you. How are you really?
I'm excited to be here with you. I was really excited to hear about your studies. My body feels quite clear. I feel like a slight pressure around the throat, but I think that's just because I've been talking for the last hour as well. So, yeah, thank you for asking me, how am I really?
Of course, it's so important that we check in with each other. The other day, Elmo checked in with people on X, and it was the first time, I think, for a lot of people that they were just honest with themselves and with the world. And it's just so important for us to really understand how we're feeling so that we can show up for ourselves and our loved ones in supportive and healthy ways.
Mm, mm. I read about that going viral. I thought that was really curious, that kind of when a kind of cute, cuddly animal kind of asks, how are you really? Maybe it's easier to kind of open up.
Yeah. When it's something
Um,
familiar too, and something that just such a powerful moment of so many people's childhood, and one of those, like, early characters that you really form some kind of attachment to, and you learn to admire and learn from as a whole.
mm, mm. Yeah, like a familiarity.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about, on the note of attachment, we're gonna talk about attachment styles today and really focus in on anxious attachment. So for people who don't know anything about attachment styles, can you give us maybe a brief rundown on what they are and a little bit more about anxious attachment?
Absolutely. Attachment research comes out of the work of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth when they were really studying what happened in different, they called it the strange situation experiment, where in different situations where children, kind of toddler, a little bit above age, would be with their mother, left without their mother. And they would look at how different children responded to being together and being separated from the primary caregiver. Back when they were doing the research, usually primary caregiver was mother, but later research has shown that those attachment styles with those infants, toddlers, children, continues on into adulthood. And that similar patterns, if we've developed what's called maybe an insecure pattern, an avoidant pattern, an anxious pattern, which I'll describe in a second, they found that those children would be having similar experiences when they tried to have intimate relationships, secure attachment with another person as an adult. So first up, we've got kind of how it leaps from childhood into adulthood. And I think that's because we kind of get several different imprints relationally from our childhood. And if often get an image of a 3-year-old kind of reaching out towards their caregiver, whoever it might be, they're kind of reaching forward. Maybe I need the toilet, or I need some food, or I need comforting, but I'm reaching. And when the reaching is met enough of the time, and they say it's kind of roughly 50% of the time, because as mothers, for any moms listening to this, we can't give our children everything they need all of the time, and that in itself would maybe not be healthy, because then a child doesn't get to figure things out for themselves enough of the time. But if we reach out and we're met enough of the time, we develop what's called a secure attachment, and that's this kind of inner knowing that I am worthy of having my needs met. It's okay that I have needs. And when I reach out, someone will be there for me. So it could be a teacher or a bus driver or my parent, or someone will be there for me when I reach. Now, if I reach out often enough and nobody is there, or I'm told to be quiet, or I'm told to go back to my room, or I'm met with, I'm even told off. Maybe I'm smacked or told off. So if I reach out enough and I have those kinds of reactions, then I develop what's called an insecure attachment style, which is I'm not certain that when I reach out, someone's going to help me. Yeah. So it's actually a lovely word, secure versus insecure. I become insecure. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure then if I'm worthy of being attended to. And I don't feel that my needs are important. And remember, as children, we don't have any context for what's happening in our parents' or caregivers' lives. So I don't have any context that my mom might be in a huge depression because she's just separated from my father, but she's not able to get out of bed. She can't speak to me. If that goes on for 2 or 3 years as a child, I think that that's to do with me. Yeah. So now so it's about 50% of the population, 50% secure, about 50% insecure. And of the 50% that's insecure, we have about 3% that's a style called disorganized. And then the rest of it is split between avoidant and anxious. Disorganized is when the caregiver has sometimes given a source of nourishment and caring, and sometimes the caregiver is a source of danger. And so I have this biological impulse to stay connected to my caregiver, because remember, as a human child, we might be one of the most kind of useless infants as we grow. We need the most care probably than any other creature on the planet. Even a 3-year-old, if you leave them alone in a forest, how long are they going to last? Even a 5, 6, 7-year-old, you leave them on their own and they're not attended to, you're going to die. So humans have a very strong inbuilt attachment system that programs us to stay close to the people who will keep us alive. So I have this natural force pulling me to stay connected to this person. But the reality is sometimes this person is dangerous and hurts me in different ways. And so then I have this equally strong force to survive that says, get away. So we end up with this attachment system that says, connect, connect, connect. So I might go into a relationship really fast. It's really euphoric. It feels amazing. I'm connected. That's what I want. That's what I need. But then something happens, and it could be something big, something small, that my alarm system goes off. And then I have this equally strong reaction of, I have to get away, and I have to get as far away as possible, as quickly as possible. That's not safe. Now I need to get back and connect. That's not safe. Now I need to get away. And so that style can feel, it can feel very confusing on the inside, very intense, and to be in relationship with as well, it can be confusing and intense. And my big tip with that kind of attachment style is to see a trauma therapist, because there's usually trauma to work through with that style. And a trauma therapist will be able to hold space and guide you through that process in the best way. I'd highly recommend something called internal family systems, EMDR, somatic psychotherapy of different kinds. Then the other two, we have the anxious and we have the avoidant, and the name's kind of a bit of a giveaway. So when our needs are not being met, the child has two choices, and this isn't a kind of a decision that they make. It will be kind of situational that will decide which way you go. Either you stay close to the caregiver and you kind of follow them around in the hope that your needs will eventually get met. So there's this anxiety around staying close. I have to stay close because when I'm not close, I'm not safe. So it could also be something that's going on in the family system, that when I'm not with that caregiver, I'm actually not safe. And it can be another example when anxious attachment can develop is if the caregiver is very anxious about the child. So let's say I'm a child and I was born with something that causes my mother a lot of anxiety. And maybe it heals later on, but my mother's left with that anxiety. Are you okay, Jen? Do you need me, Jen? Oh no, you can't go out in the cold, Jen. Oh no, you need to stay close to me, Jen. And then I would internalize, it's not really safe in the world. I'm not really safe. I need to stay close to someone, to my person. I need someone else to keep me safe. So that's the anxious style. And then the avoidance style is where the child, they reach out, it's not met enough of the time. And then they kind of go, okay, then I need to take care of myself. There's no point in me having needs. Often they'll kind of be quite disconnected from their real needs. And these kids will often be described as old before their time. Oh, he's so capable. He's so able to do everything. He's just old before his time. And there'll be parts that will kind of block out the feeling of pain around that experience of reaching out and not being met over and over again. And it doesn't have to be a major trauma with any of the insecure attachment styles. It can be more like 1,000 tiny paper cuts.
Thank you so much for explaining it so eloquently. There are so many different things I think that can cause different attachment styles, and anxious attachment specifically, I know I'll speak from my own experience. I very, very much grew up with my mom being so worried and protective over me. Everything was always she had to be there to rescue me. She was always there. Wasn't a lot of time we spent apart. Loved it,
Mm.
but also became very afraid of the world if she wasn't there. And it
Yeah.
wasn't anything she did in a malicious way. It was just she was very, very much there and very protective. And I remember being 9 years old at a cheer competition, and it was the first time I was walking around with my friends without my mom at a competition. I had a breakdown. I called her crying. I was so afraid to go anywhere without her. And I can see as
Mm.
I get older in different forms of relationships how that's come up. So it can
Yeah.
really appear in everything, even my brother, as we've grown up and he has his own life and he has a girlfriend now and he doesn't need to hang out with his sister all the time. I've noticed that I may get some anxiety over why doesn't he want to hang out with me? Does he not love me anymore? And I
Yeah.
just think it's so important to talk about this because for so long I thought something must be wrong with me. My mom was always there. My dad was always there. How could I ever feel like I'm not loved enough? But because they were always there, it really turned into I need them there and I need the people in my life who I feel really close to be present to feel safe and secure.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that, Fran. That was really vulnerable. Mm. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's so important for listeners to hear your experience, because a lot of people will think, well, yeah, I had this amazing childhood. So there shouldn't be anything, but actually, it can absolutely happen like that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Of
Mm.
course. I'm really curious, what are some maybe additional warning signs that, hey, I might be dealing with an anxious attachment and it's impacting my current relationships now as an adult?
Yeah. Um, Well, number one is anxiety. So there'll be a feeling of anxiety when there's distance. So when we have the anxious style, we like less relational distance. We like our people close to us, just like you said so beautifully. And usually it will be our primary attachment person. So it takes 2 years, the research has shown, to form a secure attachment as an adult. And in that process, we're doing kind of small step forward. We're testing the waters. We're seeing how our partner responds. When we have the anxious attachment style, which I do too, that's where I tend towards, our nervous system is more in that fight or flight in general, right? So they call it hypervigilance, hyperarousal. And so I might notice, let's say I share something with my partner from from work. I come home, and as I share it, he's kind of looking at his phone and maybe kind of, looks at me a little bit, but kind of looks away. My tendency would be to immediately think, oh, he's not really interested. He doesn't really care. And so I'm very attuned to even very small, small, I want to say turnaways, which isn't really a thing, but like small kind of turnaways in the relationship, or little, even very subtle distances. And so bigger distances and bigger threats to the relationship cause an even stronger reaction. So something that can happen as well is what's called protest behaviors when we have the anxious style, which is when we feel that distance, our nervous system says, I'm not okay, so I need to chase. So I escalate, right? This is a documented cycle. Sue Johnson's done some really great work on this in emotionally focused couples therapy. So I will escalate. So I'll get louder. And so that might sound like, well, we're on a family holiday, and here you said you weren't going to work this weekend, and here you are sitting in the bedroom answering your emails. Okay. So I've expressed anger, and my partner, and let's just say he's more on the avoidant end of the spectrum. How do you think he would meet that kind of attack? What do you think his response would be?
I think he'd get defensive and start fighting back.
Yeah. So he gets defensive, right? Because I've come in quite escalated. So he gets defensive. I'm just answering one email. It's really not a big deal. I'm here for the whole weekend. It came from my boss's boss's boss. What am I going to do? Not answer? So now what's happened is I feel more, now we're in a fight. So now the relationship for me is even more threatened. So what I do is, that's not logical, remember, because it's the attachment system that does it. I escalate even more, right? So I get louder and I get more scary. Well, you always do this. I think it's that you don't really want to be with me. You don't really want to be with the kids. Yep. So I'm using always and never statements, and I've escalated even more. And then the tendency then is for our partners to escalate even more for them, and they will want to move away, right? Especially if they're the avoidance style. Their system will often be a blocking or a numbing part that will come over, that will, in order to protect the relationship, and this is often what's really confusing for when we have the anxious style, we feel our partner move away and we're like, well, you're not helping the relationship, you're moving away. I need you to be here with me, but you've just gone to you've just gone out for a walk now. You slammed the door and gone out for a walk. So there is about 90% of couples that come into couple therapy, either 80 or 90, I can't remember now, have this dynamic of the pursuer withdrawer, which is the anxious and the avoidant. What was your original question? I think I went off on a tangent.
That was a great tangent. It really explained what it can look like. But the question was, what are some of maybe those like warning signs that I may have an
Yeah.
anxious attachment style and it's impacting my current relationship?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I did go off on a tangent. But the essence was really feeling that relational distance and having a strong reaction to it. And having anxious thoughts, and often there'll be like a sense of kind of panic, which can show up for everybody slightly different way. But yeah, a strong sensitivity to relational distance. And people will describe it, like often people know that they have an anxious attachment because they'll say, oh yeah, I totally feel anxious a lot in my relationship. It takes a lot for me to feel secure.
Those really, really great examples. And I resonate with that within my own life, my own relationships, being able to see that if something changes in the nature of the relationship, I either want to completely just like fight, or I want to fight with you to get you to kind of respond in the way that I need you to
Yeah.
respond. And I've learned that communication and consistency are really important for me to be able to communicate
Mm.
that, hey, I really need some reassurance every once in a while that you still like me, even when you're busy
Mm.
and you don't have time to maybe hang out all the time or talk all the time. And consistency in that communication, if we're going to talk every day, we're going to really talk every day and we're going to check in and then communicate, hey, I don't have a lot of time these next few days, but I still care. Instead of going from maybe talking all day every day to not hearing from you for a week at a time, that's really gonna make
Yeah.
me question my entire self-worth and honestly spiral a bit. So I've learned for me
Yeah.
when I've noticed that communication and consistency within that communication have changed everything.
Mm, mm. Brilliant. Yeah, such a big impact. And you're there, you're knowing you've identified your need, and that's a big part of it. And then being able to communicate it in a way and to a person who's able to meet you there is another part of the puzzle.
It really is. What are some other things that maybe people can do when they have identified they have an anxious attachment and they are struggling to really form that secure relationship with someone else? What are some things they can do to help better support and grow that relationship?
Mm. First, knowing that it's coming up in the relationship is helpful. And if you feel safe enough in the relationship, so it's not appropriate at all phases of a relationship, but if you do feel safe enough sharing some of your experiences and how it is for you, and that can be a great litmus test early in the relationship as to how they respond to that. Because if I share, look, it's important to me at this stage of our relationship that I at least hear from you once a day. We don't have to talk once a day, but just a text or something would be helpful. And if you're met with kind of a bit of an eye roll and oh, sometimes I can't because of X, Y, Z, that's actually it's a good indicator that that's probably not going to be a great relationship if you know that you have the anxious style. Um, Other things that can be really helpful. So in the book, I have a book called Heal Your Anxious Attachment. I really break it into the process into two parts, where the first part is working on inner secure attachment. So when we have the anxious style, our tendency is that we have parts of self, and I use part language because it's not all of self. I might have like a part of me that really wants to stay with my husband and a part of me that think he annoys me like crazy and I want to leave him. Right. So we often have different parts that will want different things in the world. And this is my view, and it's my experience as a human and the experience of a lot of my clients as well. So we'll have anxious parts that have a tendency to and from childhood to reach out to another person for the safety and security and validation and needs to be met. Totally appropriate when we're 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that we do that. But as an adult, what we really want is for these younger parts to trust us, and I mean like a core self, and to reach towards us and know that there's a part of us that will be there unconditionally always to take care of those parts. And that's where I find the transactional analysis in a child reparenting model really helpful. And where internal family systems as a model that's kind of quite similar to that in terms of parts work, super, super helpful, because one by one we can really start to connect with those parts and help to defrost them from wherever they're stuck in kind of time and space and really bring them and integrate them back into now. So they stop reaching out to the other person. So that's kind of one part of the work that I break into kind of body, mind, and spirit in the book. And then the second part is really about how do we then flow that out into relationships. So how do I connect with my needs? What boundaries feel right for me? What boundaries feel right for this relationship? And knowing that with different people, like I mean, my own experience in different relationships is different boundaries have felt right at different times. And with different people, you might want to have different boundaries. Yeah.
So
So there's a lot that you can do. And I actually just written an article about this, about kind of self-healing part of it, yes, but also relational healing part of it. So it's not a kind of an overnight fix. Usually there's not kind of one thing that changes everything. And that wasn't, my journey wasn't kind of one thing that was kind of the silver bullet. Otherwise I'd be a millionaire. And so would other therapists. Um, it's a process, and to create an attachment, so to create a secure attachment with an adult takes 2 years. So generally, it's a process, and doing some of the work in therapy is also very helpful because you're getting to practice um, some of the things that happen relationally in a safe space where you're able to get really curious about it. Like Jen, I noticed when he left for work the other day, he's got a work trip he's going on, that I had this massive reaction. I cried for an hour after he left. But I know he's only going to work to make money for me and the kids. It's like, and I know he's not having an affair, but it was really intense. And so in therapy, we can go back into that situation and we can really hold and bring forward the part that got really upset at the separation.
Yeah, it's
Is that quite a lot there? That might be a bit much, but
it is quite a lot, but it's so important, and I'm really focused in on that first part, that relationship with yourself. Because when you feel secure
Mm,
that you are gonna be there and you feel safe with yourself, it can be a lot easier to start working toward building that secure attachment and relationships with other people. And I know for me personally, that was really hard to learn to trust myself. I feel like I kind of
mm,
within that anxious attachment style and feeling like I needed my mom to be safe all the time, I didn't trust myself at all. I didn't know I could trust myself. So learning that I am enough as I am, I can be there for myself, I can comfort myself when I'm sad, I can laugh with myself, I can do these things, I can go to dinner with myself, I can hike with myself, I can just exist on my own, really helped me start to
mm,
overcome that fear of being alone, of being abandoned all the time, because that's what it turned into, this, I feel abandoned. I don't wanna be alone. I don't wanna be on my own. So I really just
mm,
loved that first piece of that secure relationship within yourself.
It's huge. It's huge. I love your examples there of quite practical, kind of, enjoying being on my own. And when we hear the thoughts of, and often it can be a felt, for me, often it's a felt sensation of kind of, I don't want to be on my own, and kind of being able to kind of hold that in the body and almost respond to that voice, but in a really loving way of, I'm here, let's go have fun. Like, I'm here. Let's go out for a hike or go to see a movie or, yeah.
Yeah.
But it takes time. Often it takes a little bit of time to establish that. Mm.
So much time. I took me forever because first of all, I had this fear of someone seeing me in public by myself and what would they think, right? So first it was overcoming that idea I had in my head that other people cared whether or not I was doing something alone and what the world would think and
Mm,
that fear of judgment. And then it was learning to be with myself without crying. I remember in the beginning, in one of my early therapy sessions, the therapist just sat there in silence and was like, "We're gonna sit here for 5 minutes." A minute in, and I was just crying. I cried the entire 5 minutes. I did not know how to be alone with myself. I did not know how to be alone with my
mm,
thoughts, and learning how to just sit with myself and be there without feeling so hopeless and worthless was a huge piece. And then getting to that
mm,
point where I wanted to spend time with myself and love myself, and then go into relationships with different types of people, whether it was with my loved ones and my parents and my siblings, or with my friends, or romantic relationships with this, I'm okay on my own and I enjoy spending time with you, I enjoy talking with you, but I also am okay when it's just me, and if this relationship doesn't last forever, that's still okay, and getting to that mindset took a very long time. I wish it was a magic pill, like, snap your fingers, make it happen. No, still working on it, but
absolutely.
it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, and I'd love for your listeners to really. They're so wonderful that they can hear that both you and me have done that, and that it does take time. And so be gentle in that process, and just be consistent and get support would be my other tip. If you can, if you have access to a therapist, you're able to do that. That's one of the best ways to do it and to go on that journey, because it's also a reparative, they call it a reparative experience in therapy, where you might do a behavior that as a child was kind of pushed away or shut down, And when you have a different experience in the therapeutic relationship where it's met with kind of curiosity and like, oh, let's really hold that. And it's, yeah, you get to have, you can develop a different imprint, a relational imprint.
Absolutely, that relationship with the therapist can really impact your sense of safety and security because it changes the nature
Mm,
of relationships in your life with that first one. I was actually going to ask when it comes to going to therapy to work on your attachment style and build that secure attachment, what do you think is the
mm,
most common maybe myth or misconception that people have that maybe we can break for them?
mm. I think when people first understand about attachment, there can be a sense of kind of hopelessness, which is why I was so happy when, you were talking about how you changed it and kind of, well, if it's kind of been imprinted from such a young age, can I really change it? And the research is really clear that you can. There's a few really good research papers that show that it can be changed and different factors can help. Um, but if we just go through life kind of not really doing anything different, not being very conscious of it, not very aware, then we tend to just do what we've always done. And so it does take kind of upskilling and learning and maybe a bit of reading, a bit of having trying testing out different things in relationships. Like you did, we are inside in you with yourself, but also in your relationship. So you've given a great example of I did something different inside of myself. I changed my relationship with me, but I also was really clear with my partner around my needs around communication, and that was super helpful too. And that's exactly my experience. Is it's not, or some therapists are kind of like, oh no, you can do it all yourself. Some therapists are like, no, you have to do it in relationship. And I'm like, actually, there's space for both. We can do a bit of the personal work, and it's really important. It has been for me. And also relationally, like I don't know if I could have done the work I've done on it without my husband. So both.
I agree. I think it's really nice when it doesn't have to be either or because
Mm,
I don't like ultimatums. I don't like that you have to choose one situation and scenario. So to know that maybe that is the right option for you and that is great and there are people out there, but there's also people out there who can help you if you want to work on both simultaneously. So I think it's
yeah.
really up to each person and knowing that it can change, it can get better, it can be really scary in the beginning, it can be very
Mm,
overwhelming because when things change, that's outside of our comfort zone, and it's okay to move out of our
mm.
comfort zone and still find safety and security within that. I'm really curious for you, what was maybe that hardest part, I guess, in the beginning as you're coming out of your comfort zone and starting to change behavior?
Mm. For me, it was the interpersonal risk. So when it came to asking for my needs to be met, working with I'd have feelings of shame that would come up. Am I allowed to ask for that? Does that make me seem really needy? I would have those kinds of questions go on. And so taking the risk of asking for what I need, but also taking the risk of putting the boundary in place, those were definitely the hardest. Yeah.
That's really powerful and scary setting a boundary. First of all, that
Mm.
guilt and shame of, "Can I ask for this? Is it appropriate to ask for this? Will this upset them? How will they feel? How will they
Yeah.
take it? Are they willing to?
Yeah.
How is this gonna impact our relationship if they don't?" So many questions
Yeah.
can really come up with setting a boundary just internally before you even begin to work on figuring out what that boundary is, how you wanna set it and how you wanna enforce it. It can be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
but you deserve to be able to set boundaries that support you and your mental well-being and make you feel loved and secure, while also respecting other people. Because when it comes to boundaries, it's important that we're respectful of other people as well and listening to their boundaries and communicating what our
Yeah.
boundaries are, maybe a bit more about why they exist and what their boundaries are and how we can work together to be respectful of both people's boundaries. Because when you have boundaries, other people do too. And it's really great when we learn to acknowledge and validate each other's boundaries and hopefully communicate and work together to build that secure relationship.
Absolutely. I've got a whole exercise when I was writing the chapter on boundaries. I did a whole exercise around working with scared parts before setting a boundary and while kind of exploring it, because I think that that's the thing that stops most people setting a boundary is we get scared of the unknown. We don't, like you just said, we don't know how they're going to respond. We don't know. And so internally, usually the thing that stops us setting a boundary is our own scared part. So I've got a whole sort of segment on, really practical. There's like 20 practices to do through the book that are all recorded around how to work with the scared part. Yeah, that come up, right? Like I still feel that sometimes, if I find it less in my intimate relationship, but I find it still comes up, maybe more in a professional context. Sometimes I'll still kind of go to, it might not even be a big boundary, really, not even really a big deal, but I can feel the scared parts come up because they get really unsure, and that's just historical for me. And I have to constantly be taking care of those parts. And I know I have to take care of those parts in me, take care of them and just do a little bit of a process with them and then go and have the conversation.
Yeah, being able to prioritize yourself and that relationship with yourself so that you can show up for other people. It really starts within us. You've been absolutely amazing. As we are wrapping up, what's one piece of advice you could offer to someone listening who's maybe listening and thinking, I resonate with this. Maybe I have an anxious attachment style. What do I do next?
Mm. Well, I would say grab a copy of my book, Heal Your Anxious Attachment. It does what it says on the tin. Release past trauma, cultivate secure relationships, and nurture a deeper sense of self. I really wanted to write a roadmap for people who have anxious attachment, and I wanted people to have access to the book that I didn't have 20 years ago. And I found that a lot of books on attachment would spend 9 chapters talking about why you have the issue and what the issue looks like. And I'm like, I already know that. I know I have the issue. I know what it looks like. I'm living it. And then the chapter about how to heal it, even on the book that said, and how to heal it would be like 5 pages long. It'd be the shortest chapter in the book and very small. And the essence of it was often go to see a therapist. And I sat with that and I was like, you know what? There's so many other things that I found really helpful on my journey with anxious attachment. Um, yeah, so I just decided I'd write quite a practical, it's kind of like a mini course. It's a bit of a workbook, really. It's not kind of like a bedtime read. It's much more of you read a piece and then here's something to practice doing. And it does involve kind of reparenting work and that stuff. So I would say go buy the book and then I have other offerings that I do. Go and see a therapist. Looking for a therapist, someone who works with attachment is helpful. But not all, it's not kind of a modality. So a lot of therapists, although they're aware of it, might not consciously kind of work with it. If you can find someone who does, great. If not, working with someone who's trained in internal family systems to help with the parts that are anxious is really helpful. If there's trauma sitting there and there's trauma sitting there, EMDR can be really helpful. And another modality, somatic psychotherapy, body somatic experiencing can also be quite helpful. If you're in a relationship, EFT couple therapy can be really helpful. Emotionally focused couple therapy, which comes out of Sue Johnson's work, who I mentioned earlier, and doing it with your partner can also be incredibly reparative because you can have the reparative experiences with your partner and you can see can be very helpful for both. So that's another option. What else would I recommend? Yeah, they're probably the two main things.
That those are amazing pieces of advice. I love that you created that roadmap that you never had because it's so important that we have a place to start. And what I love about books like this is it's really a guide. So that way, in different points in your life, you can go back to this guide and redo it and rediscover different things that you need. You are absolutely incredible. Where can people purchase your book and how can people connect with you, learn more about you and your work?
Yep. So the book's available for sale, all major book retailers, Booktopia, Amazon. Yep, you can ask your local bookstore, they'll get it in for you. It's available everywhere. You should be able to get it from your local library as well. I think they're uploading it into the library catalogs. Where can they find me? I'm at psychotherapycentral.health. I am at the moment still seeing one-on-one clients, and I also have a team who's working with me who have slightly different specializations, but all work in that attachment framework. So there's lots of different options. I also have courses as well, which some are self-paced, and I'm going to be launching some bespoke coaching with me in groups of 6. So there'll be other options there. It's exciting. It's an exciting time, and I know that I wrote this book because a lot of my clients kept asking, Jen, what book should I read about this? Like, I know I have it and I'm seeing you. What book should I read? And I just didn't have a book for them that I could point them towards. So yeah, I hope it helps people. That's all I want, really.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.